Hello, and greetings to Room 7 students and families. It's unusual for me to say hello to you this way, but we're going to start something new today. We're going to start some online YouTube videos with Math with Mr. Mac. So this is lesson 1. We're going to be covering long division with both remainders and with decimals. As well, I'll be talking about the multiplication table and some hints about flashcards. So my hopes are that everyone's healthy and happy at home. I miss the students from room 7 and I'm looking forward to seeing you sometime in the future. In the meantime, I encourage you to give me feedback on this YouTube video in the comments section. I'll be learning as I go how to edit film, how to shoot it, and how to produce it. So bear with me as I learn this with you, and let's get started today with some long division. Okay, so for our first lesson on long division, I'm first going to discuss some basic vocabulary. I'm going to make up a question right now. Let's say 8 divided into 319. Here we have some vocabulary we need to go over. This number is what we call the dividend. This number here on the outside is called the divisor, and the answer that we're going to get at the top is called our quotient. So those are important terms to know because I'll be referring to them in the future. Dividend, divisor, and this will be the quotient or the answer. When we start this question, we're finding out how many groups of 8 can I fit into 319? Or another way of thinking about it is, if I was to take 319 and break it into 8 equal parts, how many parts would be in each of those 8 groups? To start the question, we ask ourselves, can I divide 8 into 3? The answer is no. 3 is not large enough to make into into 8 groups that are wholes. So I start with a 0 up above. Now what's important here, and you'll notice I'm doing it in a dotted line because really it's not going to form part of an answer. But what it does show us is that we have attempted to divide 8 into 3. It's not possible. And we'll go on to the next question. Later on in the video, I'm going to show you another way of approaching this if you have graph paper at home in terms of lining up your numbers. It's very important when we do long division that we're cognizant of place value and that our numbers line up properly. Otherwise, it's very simple to make simple mistakes just by putting our numbers in the wrong position. So we're going to go on to step 2. And now I've tried to divide 8 into 3. It's not possible. Our next number now is 8 into 31. And this is where students' recall of basic multiplication and division skills is important. It will help them a lot along the way with this. And I'll talk about that later in the video. So I know that 8 can divide into 31 3 times. We write a 3 up above the 1. Now the next step is to multiply. 3 multiplied by 8 is 24. Again, very important that we line up our numbers correctly. The following step is to simply subtract. Here, I start in the ones column, and I cannot subtract 4 from 1, so I must regroup. So I'm going to borrow a group of 10 from the 3s. This will leave me 2 here. I take my 10 next door, and now this becomes 11. 11 minus 4 is 7. My next step is to bring down my 9. And what I do here is I draw an arrow down below, showing that my 9 is coming down beside the 7. I go back to my first step of dividing. 8 groups into 79 goes 9 times. 9 multiplied by 8 is 72. I subtract, and 9 minus 2 is 7. What the students learned early on was just to mark this as a remainder, that we have made 8 groups of 39 and there's 7 left over. So we would simply write remainder 7. That is the answer for our first question. Now I'm also going to show you how to check your answer. So do we have the right answer? So what we're going to do now is we're going to take the quotient here and we're going to multiply it by the divisor. So 39 multiplied by 8. We start in our ones column. 9 times 8 is 72. I write the 2. I carry the 7 to my tens column. We multiply now. 8 times 3 is 24. 24 plus 7 is 31. Well, wait a minute. Those numbers don't add up. 312 is not equal to 319. But wait, we had our remainder. We need to now add that remainder to our answer. 7 plus 2 is 9. Everything else stays the same. And now you can see that they're equal. So that's a simple way to check your answer is you take your quotient, multiply it by the divisor. If there's a remainder, add it to your answer. And this answer here should be the same as your dividend over here. Cut. Okay, well, I'm going to make another example here. And this is, imagine a large piece of graph paper. And hopefully you've got some graph paper at home. I just used a simple ruler to set out a grid. And I'm going to show you again a similar type of question. But I'm going to use this as a means of lining up my numbers. Sometimes students have a hard time remembering where everything belongs. So I'm going to make up another question, very similar to the last one. And hopefully this grid and these boxes can also show you how to line everything up. So let's start with a new question. So I'll say 7. And what I should note here is that only 1 digit per box. 7. Here we go, divided into, so here's my division symbol. And let's make this 245. So let's just make this a little bit darker so you can see it. So a little recap. Here's my dividend. Here's my divisor. And up above is where I'll write my quotient. So we start the problem by dividing 7 into 2. It's not possible. We write a 0 in the box above. Next, we try dividing 7 into 24, and I know that that goes 3 times. Again, 1 digit per box. 3 multiplied by 7 is 21. We subtract. 4 minus 1 is 3. Our next step is to bring down the next number, which is a 5. Now we're going to divide 7 into 35. Up above, I write 5. 5 times 7 is 35. We subtract and 0. So no remainders. Our answer is 35. To check my answer, I'm going to take my quotient. I'm going to multiply it by my divisor, and it should give me the dividend as an answer. So over here, 35 multiplied by 7. Starting my ones, 7 times 5 is 35. I write the 5. I carry the 3 over to the tens. 7 multiplied by 3 is 21. And then we add the number that we carried. So 21 plus 3 is 24. And you can see that my answers here are the same. So just another way of looking at long division, and if your child is having trouble remembering where to put the numbers, try a sheet of graph paper or make one up just like I did. It's very helpful and just another way of looking at it. Now I'm going to show you long division again, but instead of using remainders, this time we're going to use decimals. Now the kids have already seen this before, so it's theoretically review, but it's definitely a great practice for now. So I'm going to make up a new problem, and I'm going to divide 6 into 725. The students always give me a hard time because I often repeat my numbers. So Brooke, if you're listening, I hope that I have never used this number before. Let's get started. So can I divide 6 into 7? Yes, it goes one time. We write 1 up above the 7. We multiply. 1 times 6 is 6. 7 minus 6 is 1. Next step is to bring down the next number. We bring down the 2. We're going to divide 6 into 12. It goes 2 times. 2 times 6 is 12. I subtract. I get 0. My next step is to bring down the 5. We're going to draw a long arrow here, a 5 next door. Dividing 6 into 5, it's not possible. So we're going to write a 0 up above. 0 times 6 is 0. 5 minus 0 is 5. Now, in the past, I would have just said that was my remainder, and I could have written remainder 5 here. However, we're going to do things a little differently. We're going to extend the question using decimals. Here's how it's done. I'm going to put a decimal mark after my dividend. I'm going to put a decimal mark right in the same spot above in my quotient. Now what you're going to do is you're going to add a 0 to your dividend, and you're going to bring it down. And this is going to extend our question. So now you can think of this as 6 divided into 50. I know that goes 8 times. 8 times 6 is 48. And we're going to subtract. 0 minus 8 is not possible. We need to regroup. So I'm going to borrow a 10 from the 5. That will leave me 4 here. And this becomes 10. 10 minus 8 is 2. I'm going to bring down another 0. So we add a 0 to our dividend. We bring it down. And now I have 20. 6 into 20 goes 3 times. Let me extend this a bit. 3 times 6 is 18. Subtract. Same problem as before. I cannot subtract 8 from 0, so we're going to regroup. This becomes 10 minus 8 is 2. And now you might see a pattern emerging. If I added a third 0 and I brought it down, and I'm doing this to show you the next step. I'm going to get 20 again, just as before. Obviously, it goes in 3 times. And if we continue this, we're going to keep getting 20 minus 18. So that means up here in my dividend, I'm going to keep getting 3s. In math, we use the symbol. We put a small, I call it a hat or a bar over the 3. That tells the person that the 3 is a repeating pattern. This is, again, material that we've covered in class, but excellent review for the students. Cut. Sometimes kids have a hard time remembering the order of all the steps involved. So here's a quick and simple way for them to remember. We can think about the members of a family. We have dad, we have mom, we have sister, we have brother, and we have the dog, Rover. If you can remember this pattern of a family, they are the same steps as the steps in long division. Dad is the first step. That means to divide. Mom is once we've divided, we need to multiply. Multiply the first number of the quotient by the divisor. Sister is the next step. We subtract. brother is to bring down the next digit. And then we go back to the beginning. Rover means to repeat. And we start all the steps back over from the beginning. So there's a simple analogy that might help kids remember the steps in long division. Dad, mom, sister, brother, rover. Cut. Okay, now you've gone through two different types of division. We've done long division with remainders. We've done long division with decimal points. As you've gone through this, you may have realized your son or daughter is having trouble with their multiplication facts. Here's a simple solution to help them. First step is to print off, or even in their journals, they have a multiplication table. I'm only concerned with number facts up to 10 times 10. Go through them with them, the multiplication table, and see which particular numbers they have trouble with. You'll find that most of them are easy for them. There will be some that they find problematic. Make a note of which numbers that they're having trouble with. My experience is that kids have trouble with the 6 times, 7 times, and 8 times table. Once you know which questions they're having trouble with, I'm going to show you a very quick and simple flashcard that you can make at home with them. You'll take a piece of paper and you're going to cut it into a triangle. Now, for my example, I'm going to pretend that I'm having a hard time remembering 6 times 7. So on my piece of paper, I'm going to write my 3 facts. So here I have 6 and 7 that I'm having a hard time with. And of course the answer is 42. In the middle of my flashcard, I'm going to write both the multiplication symbol and the division symbol. So your flashcard should look something like this: 6, 7, 42 in each of the corners, and a multiplication and dividing question. When you're working with your son or daughter on their recall facts, all you have to do is cover up one of the corners of the card and ask them the question. So if I wanted to make it a multiplication question, I'd simply cover up the 42, and I could ask them 6 times 7 or 7 times 6. Similarly, if you wanted to turn it into a dividing question, I could cover up, for example, the 6, and I could ask them, what's 42 divided by 7? And here they'll get the answer. Or you could cover up this last corner, and I could ask, what's 42 divided by 6? And there's your answer. Once they get used to these, the math facts will come very quickly, and you'll find they'll make a real difference when it comes to doing long division, as well as other math questions I'll be covering in the future. So I'd highly recommend making up a pile of flashcards. This could be part of your math activity every day, 5-10 minutes of practicing flashcards. It's something they can do with themselves, with a brother or sister, and certainly with parents' help. I hope this tip here helps. And cut. I wanted to show you a couple of tricks with the multiplication table. If your son or daughter is having trouble with the 9 times table, here's an interesting way of looking at it. Let's start with the first one. 9 times 1, one group of 9 is 9. Now, from 9 times 2 all the way to 9 times 9, there's an interesting pattern. Let's start with the first one. I'm going to have 2 digits for my answer here now. The first digit is going to be 1 less than the number I'm multiplying 9 by. So in this case, I'm multiplying 9 by 2. So my answer is going to start with 1 less than 2, which is 1. When I take these two numbers together, they're going to add up to 9. So what do I add to 1 to make 9? I add 8. So there's my answer, 18. In the next question, I'm multiplying 9 times 3. The first digit in my answer is going to be 1 less than the number I'm multiplying 9 by. So in this case, it will be 2. What do I add to 2 to equal 9? 2 plus 7. Here we have 9 times 4. The first digit will be 1 less than 4, that's 3. And I know that 3 plus 6 is 9. Similarly here with 5, 9 times 5, my answer will start with 4. 4 plus 5 is 9. 9 times 6, 5. 1 less than 6 is 5, and 5 plus 4 is 9. We continue along. 6 and 3 makes 9. 7 and 2, and finally 8 and 1. You'll also notice that when we do this, you'll see that the numbers all go up here by 1, and they all descend here by 1. So if you have your child complete a table like this, it might help them. Sometimes kids also find that there's a nice trick with the 9 times table using their fingers, and it looks like this. You have your 2 hands here. Now let's take the first one, 9 times 2. I take my second finger and I put it down. So now I have my answer. 1 is my first digit, and the remaining fingers are 8. So 1, 8, 18. 9 times 3. I put down my third finger, and I have my first number is 2. My remaining fingers is 7. 9 times 3 is 27. 9 times 4, I put down my fourth finger, 3 and 6. 9 times 4 is 36. 9 times 5 is 45. 9 times 6 is 54. 9 times 7, there's my seventh finger, is 63, and so forth. So here's a couple hints that might help you with your child when you're working through the multiplication table. So that wraps up our first lesson about long division with remainders and with decimals, and some pointers and help with the multiplication table. I'll be making more videos next week. We'll be covering more topics as we have in class. I look forward to hearing from you. I look forward to reading your feedback in the comments section. I hope this was helpful. Unfortunately, I'm not able to produce any work activities with my computer program. So parents, I'm going to ask that you please help out here and make up some questions just like I showed today. Some kids may want more advanced questions, maybe longer dividends to work with. You could try a 2-digit divisor for a real challenge. I encourage you to mix it up. If you want, I can show you some more difficult dividing questions. I'm certainly happy to make another video if you'd like. Please let me know what you think, and we'll see you again next week. Bye-bye. Okay. Hello, and greetings to Room 7 students and families. It's unusual for me to say hello to you this way, but we're going to start something new today. We're going to start some online YouTube videos with Math with Mr. Mac. So this is lesson 1. We're going to be covering long division with both remainders and with decimals. As well, I'll be talking about the multiplication table and some hints about flashcards. So my hopes are that everyone's healthy and happy at home. I miss the students from Room 7, and I'm looking forward to seeing you sometime in the future. In the meantime, I encourage you to give me feedback on this YouTube video in the comments section. I'll be learning as I go how to edit film, how to shoot it, and how to produce it. So bear with me as I learn this with you, and let's get started today with some long division.